Father of the Bride is the second episode of the 7th season of Frasier. This is directed by David Lee, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts, and it's a really good episode. Starts off with Frasier and Ross at Cafe Nervosa, and Frasier is looking for a wedding gift for Daphne and Dawn. Ross is worried she'll be asked to be a bridesmaid because she'll have to wear an ugly bridesmaid's dress. And Frasier mentioned that the last time he looked at a bridesmaid instead of a bride was his wedding to Lilith. And I was interested in that because we don't actually see Frasier and Lilith's wedding in Cheers. And I think it was an interesting choice for them to not do that. And I don't know who the bridesmaid was. Rebecca was a maid of honor. I don't know who Lilith would have had as a bridesmaid. So it's an interesting comment. Niles then comes in and he had a really bad date. And actually, for me, it sounded like a great date because he had a date with, as he describes her, a cat person. She brought her cat. It was a surprise party for her cat. If somebody met me on a first date and said, actually, this is going to be a surprise party for my cat, you're my kind of person. So maybe Niles and I would be very different people in a lot of ways. We're then at the apartment. Daphne's on the phone with her mother. It's clearly an awkward conversation. And we learn that Daphne's mother is just controlling everything about the wedding, and she thinks she can do this because she's paying for it. And this is a common story. I hear a lot of stories of people whose parents control the wedding because they're the one managing the finances, which is not acceptable. I don't think that's acceptable ever. It's okay to have an opinion, and it's okay to say, no, I'm not willing to pay this much for this thing because it's your money. But that clearly doesn't sound like only what's happening with Daphne's mother, and she's really stressed about this. So Frasier and Martin are talking about what to get Daphne for her wedding, and they decide they could pay for her flowers. And obviously, if they're paying for it, they allow her the control of the type of flowers she wants. And Frasier goes to say, we're going to pay for your wedding flowers, but he's got the hiccups, and he's only allowed to say, I want to pay for your wedding, before he has a hiccup. And of course, Daphne just hears Frasier offering to pay for her wedding. And she says yes, because that's a wonderful gift, and it means her mother won't be controlling. It means she'll get to be married where she wants, rather than having to go back to England. It's a really great offer. Donny is hesitant, because he feels uncomfortable with Frasier paying for it because he's not really family, but then he realises, well, family to Daphne, so it's okay. And unfortunately for Frasier, Donny accepts the very kind invitation for Frasier paying for the wedding. We're then down at Cafe Nervosa, and we find out that Frasier, and this is a turning point for the episode, we find that Frasier is letting Daphne make what he considers to be bad decisions about the wedding, I guess tasteless decisions, because it's more affordable. And Niles then comes in and confirms that he's met an enchanted woman through a service called Executive Match, and she's there, she's in the room, she's on the phone, she's called Sabrina, and she's played by Locklin. And Niles is quite happy, and the next thing we know, everybody's at the apartment, there's a woman there with a harp, and Sabrina comes over with Niles to be introduced to everybody, and this is when things get suspicious, because she asks Niles how long they're going to be gone. She needs to phone the office to let them know, and he said about 8 hours, to which she replies, great. And that's when I realised this seems to be a service Niles is paying for. Frasier does confront Niles about this, who does eventually realise that this is an escort service that he is paying for, and they have his card information, so goodness knows how much money he has spent on this service. We then have, as I said, we have the woman playing the harp, and Frasier is showing Daphne all of these things for the wedding, the flowers, decisions that he has made, because he thinks that his taste is superior to Daphne's. And Daphne loses it, and she finally puts her foot down and says, no, this is my wedding. It's her and Donny's wedding, but nevertheless, it's her wedding, not Frasier's, not her mother's. She's going to do things the way she wants to. And I rather liked it. I thought it was really beautiful. And she's also asked Roz to be a bridesmaid, and Roz said yes, excitedly, because she saw the bridesmaid dress that Frasier had picked out, and Daphne told Roz that she doesn't have to worry about wearing this dress. It's not even a bridesmaid dress. It doesn't even have puffy sleeves. So Roz has to wear the dress nevertheless. And I really like the fact that Daphne stood up for herself, and I think that there's a great lesson in this for anybody in Daphne's position, where people might be controlling the purse strings and therefore think that they're controlling absolutely everything about somebody else's wedding. And is it worth it? Is it worth having the wedding you don't want just for somebody else to pay it? I would argue the better option is to have a very small, inexpensive wedding, but done the way you want it. So I think there are some good messages there. And we end with some cheers reminiscing, actually, as Frasier is talking with Martin about his weddings. And we have the first wedding in the city hall. And we have, I won't say who that is, just in case you're not aware. I don't think it's been mentioned in Frasier who the first wedding was to. Whereas the second wedding will have come up by this point. The second wedding, of course, was to Diane, which Frasier explained was lacking a bride because of what Diane did. And Martin found that funny. Martin was laughing really hard at that, which was harsh. I was just delighting in the kind of mention of Diane. And then he mentioned, of course, the wedding to Lilith. So that was a nice way to end things. We actually end with Roz being forced to try on what the bridesmaid's dress might look like. So a fun way to end things. I think it's a great episode. I think there are a lot of funny moments, but there are a lot of really great takeaways as well, particularly if, as I said, you can maybe relate to Daphne and what she's going through in this. So all things considered, I think it's a really great episode. Father of the Bride is an absolute delight. A really great episode of Frasier with some pretty funny moments and I'd say some really good messages as well. All round, a really decent episode of Frasier.